The musty old basement was full of junk, and the space behind the furnace was virtually inaccessible. This was frustrating, as I had to install a heating supply boot here for the small bathroom above. I had already cut the hole in the one available location. Now I had to find a way to get the boot into the hole from below. These old home renovation jobs could be tricky, but I prided myself on my ability to complete even the most difficult tasks. If it could be done, I would find a way to do it. It's the reason my work schedule was always full. After ruling out a few other ideas, I set my stepladder up in a clear spot about 15 feet from the hole to investigate the joist space. To my surprise, it was relatively clear. I would have to climb over an exercise machine, slither over several stacks of boxes, then overtop a large refrigerator. The boxes and refrigerator were close to the ceiling, but the joist space appeared to create enough overall space for me to slip through. I removed my tool belt, grabbed a 4-inch end boot with a short pipe and elbow attached, then started up the ladder. Clearing the exercise machine, then feeling my way over the boxes, I heard loud boots tromping down the second-story stairs to the main floor somewhere above me. It was one of the Russians working on the second floor. The guy walked around knocking dust from the bottom of the floor into my hair and face. I closed my eyes, head down. Then he went back up the stairs, probably just grabbing a tool. I opened my eyes and continued. The space was closing in quickly. I stretched out my hand holding the duct in front of me while twisting my shoulders on an angle and dropping the other arm behind me. I looked ahead and zeroed in on the dull light cascading from the hole. I was maybe halfway. "Fuck," I muttered. "The things I do for money." It wasn't cave exploration, but these were the type of adventures I could afford. Navigating crawl spaces, scaling an icy chimney to drop a liner. Once I went hand over hand down an I-beam hanging 30 feet in the air. The wife didn't like it, but it paid the bills. As I reached the refrigerator, some big commercial unit, I was starting to wonder if this was really going to work. It would be extra tight getting over that thing. I stopped to catch my breath. My mind went blank as I watched a large black spider dart across the top of the refrigerator, then disappear. Man, he was fast. I took a deep breath, held it, let it go. I focused all my senses on the narrow channel ahead. I would make this happen. I pushed myself up onto the refrigerator and further into the joist space to the point that the back of my neck and head pressed into the bottom of the floor. The hardwood had been removed here, and the remaining plywood had a slight give to it. I pushed forward again and caught a nail to the scalp. Ah! Fuck! Of course, there were small random nail tips poking down through the plywood. This was only the case in every joist space I'd ever stuck my head into. Warm blood trickled into my ear. I laid still to gather my resolve. I listened to my breath. Children were laughing and playing outside along with a barking dog. It kind of sounded like the dog was trying to get in on the action. Then they were gone. I was about to decide what to do when boots came tromping down again from the second floor. I listened as the worker walked around in the room above. I could feel the impact of his footfalls through the floor. I waited for him to leave. Then something heavy came crashing down on the floor directly above my constricted shoulder, causing considerable pain. This was followed by a deafening roar. In my confusion, it took me a second to identify the sound. It was an air compressor. Before I could yell to make my presence known, there was a loud shot and I felt something clip my neck. This was immediately followed by 2 more shots, which I also felt in my neck. The first thing I noticed was that the pain in my shoulder was gone. The second thing I noticed was that I couldn't move my legs. I began to panic. My brain was scrambling, but my body was not responding. I could hear successive shots being fired. It was a nail gun. I tried to scream as I realized the horror of my situation. All that came out was a labored breath and saliva which rolled from the bottom of my lip to my chin. The compressor turned off and the nail gun stopped firing. I could hear the guy walking around. I desperately tried to scream, to yell, to make any sound, but no sound came. Only a quiet wheeze. My tongue was rolling around, and I could move my lips. I just couldn't seem to pass enough air over my vocal cords. My eyes were darting in every direction. One arm was twitching, but I could barely feel anything else below my neck. I heard another guy come down the stairs, a short conversation in Russian, then laughter. I tried with all my might to make a sound, but it was useless. All I could feel was my head pounding with pain and nausea, like the concussion I had suffered a few years back. I heard one of the guys go back up the stairs while the other walked directly above my head. The site was quiet again except for some scratching in my ear. The guy was marking the floor with a pencil. Terror seized my mind as I anticipated what came next. The mechanical shriek of a circular saw. The saw buzzed and whined as it made short work of the plywood above my head. The hot blade ripped out hair, burned through my scalp, and began to score into my skull. The sound and smell made me think of the dentist. The pain was unbearable. I thought of Eddie Iron Maiden on the Peace of Mind album cover. My last thoughts were despair and how much I would miss my wife. My last memory was the smell of fresh cut wood and bone as a sheet of hot blood shrouded my face. I awoke neither in heaven nor hell, but in a hospital bed. As soon as my would-be slayer had felt the saw blade going into my skull and saw the blood, he had run to the basement, then called 911. The 3 nails he had put into my neck, 2 of which had almost severed my spinal cord, were to verify that the nail gun was feeding properly. The hole he had been cutting was to add some cross pieces in the joist space to add support for a new wall. The Russian foreman explained that they had thought the joist space was clear because they had checked it that morning. Today I am in a wheelchair with no feeling in my legs, but with the limited use of one arm. My ductwork installation days are over, but I was able to find meaningful work online, helping people with disabilities like my own. My wife doesn't mind having me around the house, as long as I don't get under her feet too much. And although my situation may be less than ideal, far less than ideal, one look at her smiling face and I know it could have been a whole lot worse. Sometimes it takes almost losing everything to understand the true value of what you really have. Not a minute goes by that I take that smile for granted, and not a day goes by that I don't think about what happened to me under the floor.